Have you ever felt like you're caught in some kind of net, but you can't see it? Well, today we're going to dive into a really fascinating and, I've got to say, unconventional philosophical system. It comes from a text called the 36-8 diagram arrays, and it offers a totally unique perspective on reality, our relationships, and what it really means to be free.
So, this whole philosophy kicks off with a single, really unsettling question. What if the very things that give our lives meaning, our families, our countries, our beliefs, what if they're actually invisible traps? The text calls them arrays, and they're supposedly holding us back. It's a pretty wild idea, so let's unpack what the author actually means by that.
All right, so to really get our heads around this worldview, we need to start with the core concept of the array. According to the text, these are the invisible structures that shape, well, pretty much every aspect of our lives.
So, what is an array exactly? Well, the text defines it as a net of human consciousness. Think of it like a pre-written program or a kind of matrix that keeps us in what the author calls a lower state of being. It's this cycle of reincarnation, of repeated lives, where we just can't seem to reach our full potential.
And wow, this quote really paints a picture, doesn't it? From a higher perspective, all of humanity looks like a school of fish caught in these invisible nets. The implication is pretty clear. Escaping these nets isn't just a good idea, it's a matter of spiritual survival. Okay, so let's look at the first one. And honestly, this might be the most challenging array for many of us. It's called the net of affection, and it's all about our emotional bonds with other people.
So according to this text, our affections for our family, our partners, our friends, are actually the most powerful and the most difficult nets to break free from. They're described as a real double-edged sword. I mean, they can nourish us, for sure, but they can also tangle us up and torture us, making us restless for our entire lives.
The author uses this brilliant analogy to explain it. Affection is like salt in food. If you have too little, life is bland, it's tasteless, but if you have way too much, it just becomes bitter and overpowering. You're trapped. So the goal isn't to get rid of affection entirely, but to find that perfect balance.
All right, so the next major array is what the text calls the cage of belonging. This one shifts from our personal one-on-one relationships to our group identities. Those larger categories we all use to define who we are.
And this concept is incredibly broad. We're talking everything from nations and religions to the companies we work for and even our own families. The argument is that when we identify too strongly with any one of these groups, it creates a kind of cage that really narrows our perspective. And often, this cage is reinforced by that net of affection, which can lead to selfishness and conflict because we start to prioritize our little in-group over everyone else.
And the contrast here is just stark. Being in the array of belonging means your mind is confined. You're only serving a small, specific group. But to escape from the array, that means expanding your mind, seeing yourself as a citizen of the entire planet, and serving all of humanity. It's a huge shift from a limited identity to a universal.
Okay, so if life is just one giant series of traps, you're probably asking, how on earth do I get out? Well, the good news is the text doesn't just present the problem and leave us hanging. It also offers a solution. So let's look at what it calls the path to escape.
The text lays out this four-step process. First, you've got to change your consciousness from that limited human perspective to a celestial one. Basically, learning to see the bigger, universal picture beyond your own ego. Second, you have to repay all your worldly debts. This isn't about running away from your life. It's about fulfilling all of your responsibilities. Third, you cultivate independence by shifting your affection away from just specific people and towards the universe as a whole. And finally, you learn to live according to your true, innate nature, not all the habits you've just picked up along the way.
And that last step, about getting back to your true nature, it's supported by some pretty ancient wisdom. There's a quote here from Lao Tzu that suggests we need to let go of all our cleverness and complex thinking and just return to a simpler, more innocent state of being, like an infant.
And it's not just an idea from Taoism. This theme of returning to a pure, unconditioned state is echoed in a quote from Jesus Christ, "Become like little children." So it's pretty clear this philosophy is pulling ideas from different spiritual traditions, but they're all pointing to this state of innocence as the key to breaking free.
So we end with one last powerful question from the text. If all of these structures, our affections, our identities, our ambitions are just arrays in some larger cosmic game, and only life itself is actually real, well, then it forces us all to ask, what game are you playing? And is it even possible to stop?
That's definitely something to think about.